What happens when a man who feared no one makes an entire nation fear him? He wasn't just a dictator. He was a shadow in every home, a ghost in every prison, a name whispered in terror even by his closest generals. This is the brutal, terrifying truth of Saddam Hussein, a man who ruled Iraq not through leadership, but through fear, fire, and blood. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you'll see how a king can fall and how absolute power can turn a man into a monster. Saddam Hussein wasn't born in a palace. He was born in poverty in the dusty village of Al-Anfal near Tikrit, Iraq in 1937. His father either died or abandoned the family before Saddam was even born. To this day, no one knows for sure. And that missing father shaped his world. His stepfather was a violent, bitter man who beat Saddam mercilessly. Saddam grew up in a household where fear, silence, and survival were the only rules. He learned early, if you didn't strike first, you became the victim. At just 10 years old, Saddam ran away to live with his uncle, Khairallah Tulfa, a former army officer and radical Arab nationalist. Tulfa filled young Saddam's head with hate against foreigners, Jews, Persians, and imperialists. He taught him that Iraq's destiny was greatness, and that only the strong and ruthless deserved to rule. That was Saddam's real education. Not school books, but revenge, nationalism, and control. In his late teens, Saddam was already carrying weapons and reading political theory. But his mind wasn't focused on building something. It was focused on taking power. In 1959, at just 22 years old, Saddam participated in an assassination attempt on then Iraqi Prime Minister Abdul Karim Qasim, who had betrayed the Ba'ath Party's trust. The plan failed. Saddam was shot in the leg and fled the country, bleeding, limping but alive, smuggled across the border into Syria and then Egypt. He lived in exile, studied law in Cairo, and bided his time. Even then, he was already planning a return, a comeback, a revenge story, not just against Qasim, but against anyone who would ever stand in his way. When the Ba'ath Party finally took power in 1968 after a coup, Saddam returned to Iraq, not as a hero, but as a silent architect of terror. Though not yet president, he quickly became the engine behind the regime. He controlled the oil. He built the secret police. He built networks of spies in every town, school, mosque, and military unit. He didn't need the title of leader yet. He had something more powerful: control over people's fears. And when the time came to step into the spotlight in 1979, Saddam didn't just walk into the presidency. He made sure everyone who might oppose him was either dead, missing, or too terrified to breathe. Saddam Hussein wasn't just a man rising to power. He was the storm Iraq never saw coming. In one of the most chilling moments in political history, Saddam called a meeting of top Ba'ath Party members. With cameras rolling, he read out names, one by one, of people he accused of being traitors. Some cried, some collapsed, some begged for their lives, but it didn't matter. Those names were dragged out and executed. The others were forced to clap through tears to prove their loyalty. That day, Saddam became president of Iraq, and Iraq would never be the same. Saddam ruled not with laws, but with fear. He built one of the most brutal police states in modern history. Phones were tapped. Neighbors spied on neighbors. Children were told to report their parents. If you whispered the wrong words, if you frowned at the wrong time, if you were simply in the wrong place, you disappeared. Inside Saddam's prisons, the torture was unspeakable. Electric shock to the genitals, acid baths, beatings with cables, rape, not just of women, but men too. And sometimes, entire families were tortured in front of each other, all of it ordered by Saddam's regime, and sometimes by Saddam himself. But his most infamous crime was against his own people. In the 1980s, Saddam launched a genocide campaign against the Kurdish population in northern Iraq. He called it Al-Anfal. Entire villages were burned. Men were lined up and shot. Women were raped, then disappeared. Children were taken, some never seen again. Then came Halabja. March 16, 1988, Saddam dropped chemical weapons on a town filled with civilians. Poison gas filled the air. People choked, their lungs burned. Mothers died holding their babies. Over 5,000 people were killed in a single day. And Saddam never apologized. While Iraqis suffered, Saddam built a world of lavish palaces, golden rifles, and giant statues of himself. He was obsessed with power and image. He wrote novels under a fake name. He made schoolchildren memorize his speeches. He had portraits of himself hung in every building, in military uniforms, royal robes, and even armor like ancient kings. He wanted to be seen as a god, even if it meant killing anyone who doubted it. And his sons? They were even worse. Uday and Qusay, the devil's sons. Saddam's son, Uday Hussein, was a sadist, a rapist, and a killer, known for torturing Iraqi athletes if they lost games. He kidnapped women off the streets. He even beat his father's valet to death with a cane at a party. Qusay Hussein, the quieter son, was the enforcer, running Iraq's intelligence services and executing anyone who dared to speak out. Together, the Hussein family ruled Iraq like a mafia dynasty. Until Saddam made a mistake. In 1990, Saddam invaded Kuwait, thinking the world would stay silent. He was wrong. The United States and a coalition of nations launched the Gulf War and crushed his forces in weeks. But Saddam stayed in power. He crushed uprisings, burned oil fields, withstood sanctions, and still ruled with an iron fist. Until 9/11 changed everything. After the September 11 attacks, the U.S. accused Saddam of having weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, and supporting terrorists. In 2003, America invaded Iraq. Within weeks, Baghdad fell. But Saddam vanished. For 9 months, Saddam vanished from the earth. He wasn't dead. He wasn't abroad. He had simply disappeared. The U.S. military launched massive manhunts. They interrogated his former aides. They raided homes, tunnels, mosques, but nothing. It was as if Saddam had become a ghost in the sand. Whispers spread. Some believed he was in Syria. Others claimed he'd committed suicide. His face appeared on America's now famous deck of cards. Saddam was the ace of spades, the most wanted man in the world. And then, on December 13th, 2003, the world saw something it never expected. A bearded, dirty man crawling out of a tiny underground hole near Tikrit. It was called a spider hole, 6 feet deep, barely wide enough to lie down. No phone, no guards, just a can of dates, a loaded pistol, and a broken legacy. Saddam Hussein, the man who once built golden palaces and ordered the death of thousands, had been found in the dirt like a rat. The once feared dictator, now a prisoner. When American soldiers pulled him out, he didn't fight, he didn't scream. He looked up and muttered just 2 words, "I'm Saddam Hussein." But no one trembled anymore. Saddam was put on trial for crimes against humanity. He remained defiant, shouting in court, calling the judges traitors. But the evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses wept as they spoke of lost family, destroyed homes, and torture they could never forget. On December 30th, 2006, Saddam Hussein was hanged. The world watched the grainy video. His neck snapped, his body swung. The tyrant was gone. So why is Saddam Hussein remembered as one of the most brutal dictators in history? Because he turned fear into a weapon, because he buried truth beneath lies, because he ruled a country by destroying its soul. But perhaps the most chilling truth? He believed, until the very end, that he did nothing wrong. And that is the danger of unchecked power. Because when one man becomes more powerful than the law, the people, and even morality itself, the result is not leadership. It is tyranny. And Saddam Hussein was its darkest face. If you found this story powerful, share it. Let the world remember what happens when fear rules instead of freedom. Subscribe for more untold true stories that shook the world, because history is not just about the past. It's about the warnings we can't afford to ignore.